pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Because of an election, we are going to have oath of the office for the three people that were, I guess, all were re-elected at the last general election.
Yeah, so if I could just have the three of you just raise your right hand and repeat after me. And please state your name.
I, Frank Tyson,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of mayor or council of the city of Waite Park,
Office of
council
Mayor, our city of Waite Park.
Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, now I guess we can have a meeting. All right, open forum. Is there anyone here for the 2-minute open forum?
Step forward.
Yep,
All right.
2 minutes.
I understand. I got the timer on. I even started it.
All right.
Oh, is it taped on? Oh, just on top? Thank you. I was here earlier in November, talking, Peter Wilson, Sartell, Minnesota. I was here in November and we were making a complaint regarding the election environment at one of the schools. We appreciate the information you gave, Sean. I'll be sending out an email thanking everyone. We are moving forward and did go to the county attorney and make a formal complaint. Again, I think it was rather apparent from what we found in visiting with everyone and the information you gave that something inappropriate had happened. It's not our judgment to say what the consequences are. It's up to someone other than us. So that is moving forward. In that process, I've also started to look at what has been a concern of mine for some time, and that is how some of the terminology and policies are intertwined both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level with certain groups, in this case, the United Nations, and the idea of sustainability and how it's interwoven, even using the identical words from them. Again, I look at the fact that you swore an allegiance up here as this started, not to the United Nations, but to the state and to the federal government's constitution. So again, I don't want to spend much more time here because I don't have much more, but the main thing is to indicate that this is going to be a long journey, either this year or into next, regarding what is known by the unelected officials in the city and what is known by the elected officials, and see if they're congruent. Thank you for your kindness.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
How's that?
There you go, right on time. That's what we like. Start it again.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Morganroth here at Waite Park. And I just want to share this. Anytime we lose someone, whether it's a family or someone that we maybe don't even know, but he's had an effect on society like Chuck did, it's something that should be recognized. So I am recognizing that tonight. And I'm very deeply rooted in my walk with the Lord, so I have to stop there because I don't want to go any further on that part. But what I want to share now is this. Before the election this last fall, I had the opportunity to sit down with the city administrator and the city planning director. I was invited to come in and sit down with them if I had any questions, so I did. And I did have questions, and it had to do with this binder that I have in my hand here. And it has to do with the Green Steps program and sustainability goals of Stearns County, Benton County, Sherburne County, of which Wade Park is a part of. And when I started asking questions, the response I got was, you have to direct your questions to the city council. That's not my position to answer those questions. So what I'm asking the city council tonight is that if I have these questions, which I do, I've got a whole binder full of them here, that you will be open with me and you will answer the questions. As Peter referred to, you took an oath to the Constitution of Minnesota and the Constitution of the United States of America, not to the United Nations agenda, of which the Green Steps and sustainability goals, along with Globus ideas, is all related to, along with the Minnesota League of Cities. And when I was doing my campaigning, which I didn't do much, but I talked to a lot of people on the street, door to door, knocking on doors. And one of the issues that was brought up to me was the Minnesota League of Cities and people who are employed by the city of Wade Park's involvement with that. So we've got some stuff we have to iron out, guys. And we've got to get a handle on who's paying the bills for this stuff. We know what the goal is with the Globus agenda, internationally and locally. It's all in this binder.
All right,
So thank you.
yep. If you want us to do that, why don't you send us that, forward that? We'll have our legal attorney look at it, approve it, we'll go through it.
It's
We
all on the websites.
If you want us to look at it, please send it to us.
Do you want me to print it all out again and send it to you? Is that what you want?
The
Is that what you'd
question-
like?
The questions you have for us, so,
Yeah.
I mean, and you're more than welcome to either come to a council meeting, but to be honest with you, I don't know, I wanna discuss it at a council meeting. I'd rather do it at a work session if that's all right
Right.
with you.
And the other thing, as long as you brought this work session thing up, the public,
Public's
most of the
invited to
public is
work
not
session.
aware of this stuff at all.
Well, they're aware of all of our meetings, they're all posted, so
Yeah.
they're invited to all our meetings, and
But-
so is the media. In fact, the media usually comes to those and not to this one, so.
Okay, well, and you have those right before your council meetings,
That's
correct?
correct.
They're
Okay, well-
published.
Yeah. They're
We'll
public.
I will put an initiative out to people to attend these meetings then, because it's very important. Because most of the public out here are too busy working and trying to make a living, then, and to come to a meeting, just like you had a city council meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Who can come to that? That's not fair to the public. So, anyway, I gotta go because you
Yep.
said my 2 minutes were up, but
All
thank
right.
you very much for your time.
Okay. All right, review and approve council, anybody else for 2-minute open forum? Anybody else? Anybody else? Review and approve council agenda?
Move to approve the council agenda as presented.
I would like to make a change or an add-on. At the end, administrator update or whatever, under that, or council mayor. I'd just like to have a few minutes to talk about Agassiz funds and
About what?
availability. Agassiz,
Legacy.
Legacy?
or Legacy, I'm sorry.
All right, we can add that, yeah, either one, mayor or administrator,
I'll second the motion
as amended.
as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Consent agenda items. Item A, approve 11/13/18 city council minutes, and item B, 2019 appointments.
I'd like to pull B.
All right, somebody want to move to approve A?
So move.
Second.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item B is our appointments, and the two that we're missing just a couple of them, all because of the vacancy of our council member. We need to fill an acting mayor position. There also is one for the Joint Area Planning Board, which I don't believe we need that anymore. That board has kind of been put on hiatus. It's just kind of sitting there. It's still there, but we don't meet anymore. I guess that's the only two.
Mike, you want to be acting mayor?
I would take the appointment for acting mayor if
Oh, yeah,
you so wish to be. I do have available time now, seeing that I kind of became retired. So if Rick is not here, I could take his place if needed.
I'll move to appoint Mike as acting mayor.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Well, the APO,
I don't know what it's called anymore. There's not an executive board and there's not a board. There's, whatever it's called, yeah,
BO rep.
I'd like to have an alternate to that, yeah. I don't- So I would move, and I talked to Frank, I'd move that, we'd appoint Frank
As the main
as the
person?
alternate.
As the alternate, okay. And
Second.
you as the main.
I second that.
At least while we give it a few meetings to see what it's like.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Do you want to appoint anyone for the Joint Powers Board, or do you want to just leave
I
it?
think we'll just leave
Okay.
it, and if there's one and I can't go to it,
Okay.
There's not a joint powers board.
Planning, I'm sorry, Joint Planning
planning
Board.
board. Yeah, it hasn't been real,
So the joint area planning board,
No,
just
we
cross
don't
it
need
all
an
out?
alternate for
Okay.
that, just leave it the way it is, and,
Leave it, or cross it out, leave it out.
yeah.
just don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'll help.
Take it off the list or remove it from
Place,
the list.
where is it? Oh, here we go. All right, item A, public hearing on vacation of drainage and utility easements, preliminary and final plat, Molitor Industrial Park Plat Two. Wake Park City Council will hold a public hearing at City Hall on 13th Avenue North at 6:30 PM or soon thereafter on Monday, January 7th, 2019, to hear the request of Edwin R. Molitor and Brenda L. Molitor and Rock On Properties Incorporated to vacate and rededicate the following utility and drainage easements. All drainage and utility easements within Lot 1 and Lot 2, Molitor Industrial Park, according to the recorded plat thereof, Stearns County, Minnesota. All interested persons are invited and encouraged to attend or send written comments. The public hearing is open at 6:42. Is there anyone here to speak at that public hearing? I'm waiting for my minute. Is there
Maybe I
anyone?
can throw a quick question out there. Can we do that now?
No.
Or do we gotta wait till we close?
Well,
Okay.
Anyone here to speak at the public hearing?
move to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting, the public hearing is closed at 6:43. Let's see, we need a couple motions then.
Quick question, just to kind of clean. Do we have to buy any of these easements from these people, or are they donating?
No, they're being proposed to be rededicated. They were a little bit off, they found during the survey process for the plat. Basically, they're just being removed and then put right back where they should be. We're also looking to expand, the drainage, and utility easement that runs north-south between them, to the property to the north. That was something that came up during review, and the applicants haven't noted an issue with that, so we're not losing anything. It's actually correcting an error that just came up during the survey process.
So we're not purchasing any property for these easements at all?
No. There's also a component of the plat portion. Basically, one property wants to buy a little bit of another property, and to do that, it would be too small to do through a lot split. It's basically kind of a sliver. They'd have to plat it as the first step in that. And because the rock-on portion has not been platted, we actually would acquire some parkland dedication funds as part of that, and that's noted in the report and the recommendation.
Oh, that was kind of my question, was the parkland dedication, and they're all right with that?
Yeah, that was my recommendation to the park board, and the park board had consensus with that, and they recommended that amount. That's just based on the calculation of the land value from the assessor's office.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you
The
want?
land only, not buildings. That's the way we calculate it.
Want to move to approve the vacation of drainage and utility easements?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. And the preliminary and final plat?
Move to approve.
Second.
Take your pick. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item B, ordinance amendments, section 52.11, A-1 agriculture rural residential district, conditional use permit and interim use permit, and establishment of ordinance 52.56, zoning, solar and wind electric generating facilities regulations. John?
I'll try to keep my report brief. It's fairly extensive. I won't go through the ordinance line by line, but I'll certainly open up for any questions if you have. You may recall that about this time last year, actually February last year, due to the numerous requests the city had been seeing for the large-scale standalone solar facilities, especially in the A1 areas around the substation on Conroe Road 38. We had been seeing a high interest in those, including from additional ones, aside from those that have already been approved in that area. The moratorium was passed by the council to allow staff time to review options and recommend the creation of a separate ordinance to address the solar facilities and try to tackle the concept of wind power as well. We don't see really a lot of interest in that, but made sense to try and include that at the same time. The facilities that we were looking at previously had been considered under an interpretation under the conditional use permit allowance. But what I'm recommending is that they be converted to a proper interim use permit for solar facilities. And then that a wind turbine facility would be considered a conditional use permit because those are more permanent in nature generally. Some years back, about 2 or 3 years ago, we had initial conversations with some of the solar industry representatives that said we would see perhaps 2 developments, that was the capacity for the infrastructure, and we've already exceeded that twice over. And I know that there's interest out there in at least several more, and it's all pretty much centered around the substation on 138. That's kind of the candle to which they're all attracted. Given the rapid development of the facilities and concerns that have been raised generally quietly into staff from adjacent landowners that are a little bit reluctant to perhaps voice their opinions at public hearings that have been associated just due to not wanting to ruffle feathers and long-standing relationships there with their neighbors, we thought it was time to take a look at it. And the proposed ordinance is kind of the culmination of reviewing several ordinances throughout the state and ultimately actually looking towards whatever our nearby neighbors, Sauk Rapids, has done, setting some distance requirements between solar facilities, which would place pretty significant limitations on their location, setting them three-quarter a mile apart, including from any existing facilities or any that are that have been approved but perhaps not yet constructed, and making them a proper interim use permit. Also setting pretty significant bond requirement with a inflation calculation included as well. The council has had the foresight to include some pretty significant bond amounts on at least one of the last projects, but as you're well aware, that amount of money today may not go that far in 25 years, so we have an inclusion for that calculation to bump that up a little bit, hopefully safeguard the city for any additional facilities. Realistically, I would not expect to see likely any facilities in that area where most of them have been constructed or approved already, just given the spacing requirements and mapping those out. It doesn't eliminate the possibility of additional solar facilities, but it would space them far enough out that basically I don't believe it would be a concern. And the distances involved from both public roads, from other facilities, I think would be pretty tight to find locations that would work, but those that may be possible would be more suitable for our purposes than putting them in what we foresee as growth corridors. We also add in some specific requirements and criteria for review and approval processes, as well as noting some more specific landscaping requirements. We really haven't had a lot of guidelines to review these by in the past. This would rectify that situation. It's my understanding that Sauk Rapids has had pretty good experience with the model ordinance that they used. I worked off of that because I think it's sometimes beneficial to keep our ordinances in line with some of our neighboring cities for a lot of these types of things. And I think this does a pretty good job of looking for our future and still perhaps allowing some of these in areas where they could be guided into lowland or wetland areas where they can be constructed without eating up valuable development land. For the wind side, it does treat them as a conditional use permits. I did set a height limit of 50 feet. The intent is to allow for a personal type turbine for a farm or a house. Usually those are smaller turbines, and I don't know that we would actually see a request for that, but it was intended that if we do, that we could address it properly. I would recommend approval of the ordinance revisions as recommended and suggested. Planning Commission did review and discuss this at length at their meeting last month. We didn't have any public comments at that time, although we did receive a written letter that was provided to the Planning Commission, received day of, and is included in your packet. We also received a letter from Paula Fitzgerald at Novel Energy Solutions. She submitted that letter today, and I've included a copy of that at your stations for review and consideration per her request. But aside from those two letters, we did not receive any public comment.
All right, council, any questions for John?
Yeah. The wind turbine restriction, is that included from or to or around the solar also, the 3/4 mile?
No, I believe, I'd have to take a look. Let me see here to be sure.
I kind of glanced through it a couple times and I didn't see, would we want to include a restriction of 3/4 miles from any solar or wind turbine?
Well, the trouble with that could be that they could be two farmers. I'll pick on the Zabinskis, they're not here, but they're across the street from each other, and they might both want a turbine, and they wouldn't be that 3/4 of a mile, and they're not big
No,
turbines.
he's got the turbines for personal use
Yeah,
covered.
that's what we're talking about.
I'm talking about the big turbines.
Oh, the big ones.
No, this wouldn't allow for
It doesn't-
large turbines. This limits them
This
to
is just
small
the
turbines.
small ones,
So you're just talking the small wind turbines?
under
or-
50 feet.
Yeah, 50 feet or less.
Yeah.
We would not, basically, under the ordinance, any sort of major VA type wind turbine would just not be allowed.
You probably buy that.
We, from my understanding, whenever it's come up, is that this area just doesn't have the wind to really make
Right,
such
it
an
probably would
installation
never come
beneficial.
up, but would we want to protect ourselves in case someone came in and had 20 acres and said,
They'd have to
It's
come,
viable.
they'd have to come and ask for approval, and then that's how you.
Yeah, I mean, if it came up and for some reason that it was within that guidelines, we'd work with it. But really, this was designed to allow for a small turbine. Anything larger than that is just not allowed by default. Not that they couldn't look for relief or request to amend, as we see once in a while, but the intent isn't there to allow for those large-scale wind facilities.
I just don't want to see a lot of our buildable that's been in planning for many years, as, you know, the R1 areas that are variable out in the south end disappear to something like this that is there for 25 years and you don't know.
No, what I would expect to see, if any, there's some manufacturers that make relatively small-scale turbines. Sometimes they don't even look like you think. They look more like almost like an art installation. They have kind of a spindle type thing. That's more of the intent, and that it would be for someone that's perhaps environmentally minded and you wanted to use it as a on-site feature. But as far as a large-scale corporate generating facility, that would pretty much be excluded just by design.
And the existing ones we've given permission are going to be grandfathered in under
Yes.
this existing?
Yep, they would be treated the exact same way. They would stay with nothing would change with those. Everything would be measured for anything new, which again, I've mapped it out and it would be awfully tight, and especially around the 138 area where the substation, where they're all attracted to, because everybody wants to be within that area, and the connection to the substation is what's driving most of these developments. The further away you get from that, the less desirable they are.
So if they came in and wanted to add some acreage to we could deny them? at that
Yeah,
time?
we could deny that then.
Mike, once they get past a 1 megawatt production, different state regulations kick in. So they always keep it under or at a 1 megawatt.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple of questions. John, we've got two letters, one from Novell Energy Solutions and one from US Solar. They seem to be repeating the same kind of message that we're really putting a restriction on, which would make it impossible for them to even consider coming into the area. What's your response to that?
I don't feel that it's impossible. By design, I wanted to put them further apart. I think, to be completely honest, I think we've taken a large fair share of facilities for our area. The facilities we do have, the earlier ones especially, have been located in relatively flat arable land that would be really nice for long-term development. I think the last one on the Hill, Blonigan, Belclair side, in working with them through that process, I think we did a better job and collaboratively of guiding at least a portion of that into the lowland, wetland areas, where there they make a little more sense because that's not really readily buildable without a lot of economic work. I don't want to see the western area of the city tied up for 25 years in solar panels when I think there should be room to spread some of these around amongst all the cities and perhaps more so the townships in the county. One thing I would note, I didn't put it in the packet, but some of these developments have touted the economic benefit to the municipalities of these solar developments. The truth is that's pretty nominal. I spoke with the Stearns County Assessor's Office staff that realistically we may see a couple $1,000s in tax benefit from each of these installations. 80% of the tax that's self-reported from them, from my understanding, so it's basically an on-your-honor system based on the energy produced. 80% of that goes to the county. The 20% remainder goes to the municipality, in our case, the city of Waite Park. I think that is indicative that perhaps the intent was more that they would be located in township or more rural areas. Now, while our more western area where these have been focused does have that kind of township walk and talk, it is still a city area and with associated city plans and city development growth opportunity. I'm concerned that the ones that we have interest in, especially not the ones that we have seen already, but the ones that are out there that I've seen some interest in, are really looking to locate along the growth corridors, especially Highway 23 and our entrance to the city, where we have some people that have already made investments in those areas or are actively making investments looking for long-term permanent development. And if we have too many of these, I think it's going to really restrict options. I recognize the ability of landowners to make some money on their property, but when it comes to the long-term well-being of the city as a whole, I think that we've already found kind of a balance with 4 of these developments in a pretty small area, and I don't know that I want to put all our eggs in one basket in solar panels for hundreds and hundreds of acres down there.
All right, anything else?
Yeah. They also talk about the decommissioning fee of $500,000 of the bonding as being extremely high. How did we come up with that figure?
We came up with that figure because we want to be sure we're not left holding the bag. We don't really know the realistic price of this to remove a facility because it hasn't been done yet. And serious developments have paid that fee and not had an issue with it. It's a high fee, no doubt, but we need to safeguard for the future of the city, because if something changes, if these facilities are abandoned, I don't want the landowners and the city to be in a pointing match of each saying the other is responsible for removal. The intent is that the bond would never be drawn on. Obviously, at the time of decommissioning, the landowner or the landowner is notified of the decommissioning need, and if they take it down, then it's no muss, no fuss, no harm done. But if we had to ever draw on that amount, I would rather that we be on the high end, and we don't wind up costing taxpayer dollars to decommission what's essentially a private development at the city's expense. There's honestly not a lot to these projects. You know, there's poles and solar panels and some inverters and boxes, but we don't know what the future holds and how these may be classified in the future. I mean, we've seen in the past where all of a sudden some seemingly innocuous material is reclassified and, oh, that's toxic, and now it takes special training and special certified people to remove it. I mean, maybe not now, maybe never, but it's really just an insurance policy for the city. The last project we had, I think that bond amount was bumped up at the council's discretion to that at or near that mark. They didn't have a problem paying that. I would note that a $500,000 bond doesn't mean that they're putting down $500,000 cash. That they're paying for the policy, and it's a fraction of that. It's not outside the realm of what's realistically to be expected for a project. It might be a consideration for them, but it's doable, and we've seen it done. I think other cities have done that as well. We weren't the first city to require a bond amount that high, and I know that it's maybe not the favorite approach of the solar developers because they're out to make money, and every cent they don't have to spend is $1 in their pocket. But as far as safeguarding the city for future generations, I don't have an issue requiring that amount.
You said Sauk Rapids was a model policy for us.
Yes.
Do they have that $500,000 limit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Theirs was pretty close with this amount.
Frank, did you have something?
Yeah, this is the one time I wish you would have included the planning commission's conversation. All you say is there was a lot. And now I would like to read it, what the conversation was based around.
Well, I can summarize it for you. It was 4-1 with Mr. Zabinski against.
No, the conversation about the ordinance, not the
vote.
the vote.
What was
The
Mr.
minutes of-
Zabinski's reason for voting against it?
I think Mr. Zabinski feels he represents the landowners, the larger share landowners in that area, and he would rather see the ability of
I don't think they were
farmers to
posted yet.
perhaps utilize some of their property for these purposes. I don't think he disagrees that there's need for an ordinance addressing it, but I think he is not in favor of such strong restrictions. But there was a lot of discussion around the wind turbines as well, and whether that should be a higher height, whether it should be 100 or 150 feet, whether 50 feet is realistic. They ultimately settled that we would start with 50 feet. The Plan Commission recommended it as approving it as a starting point, so we have an ordinance in place. They recognize that, as with any ordinance, especially a new ordinance, it may need to be revisited sometime in the future. And I think we recognize that with any ordinance, that it may need to evolve a little bit over time.
I think my personal conflict comes with the fact that we're basically telling landowners what they can consider on their property or not. And I think that's what bothers me on this.
We do that all the time.
We do it.
We do that every time you get a building permit, we tell you what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
What's your wishes? Move to approve the ordinance?
I just got one,
Or
on
deny?
that 500,000, we can increase that when they come in front of us if we feel there's a need?
Let me confirm here.
Because I was the one that brought it up last time and we increased it to the 500,000 mark.
Yep, it's
Due to the fact that several other cities had these big solar deals come in.
It starts at 500,000, and it can be higher as may be deemed appropriate by the city.
Because several of them went to $1 million right away because of the fear of after the 25 years, the hazardous materials and things that could be formed from this, which nobody knows what's gonna happen because they're so new. So,
Yeah, ideally, and in all likelihood, it'll never have to be an issue, but it's a worst-case absolute scenario that we would have
right,
to,
and
we'd have
that's
to
why
draw
we
it. Yep.
required the bond, so that we don't, as a city, have to go into our own coffers to pay for the cleanup or the removal of this type of equipment.
What's your wishes, to move or to approve or deny the ordinance updates as submitted? Heck, I'll get it off. I move to approve.
Well, I'll second for discussion
Further
if
discussion?
anybody else.
Further discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Opposed?
Aye.
2-2. Do I break the tie?
You already
Well,
voted.
we can bring it back when we have a fifth council member.
If it's a tie vote, it's motion
It
fails.
fails.
I can break a tie.
no, you already got your vote in there.
Your
You're
vote is
counted.
included.
Mayor don't get two.
It all depends.
I don't know what your concerns are. That's fine that it dies 2-2. I don't know what your concerns are. I think
So,
Well,
let's just
$500,000.
For
talk-
sure, let's bring back the whole minutes of that meeting.
Couple things just to point out. So right now you have is there a
Moratorium, what's the-
moratorium on
But when does it expire?
February?
February, early February.
So we need to make
7th, I
this,
believe.
we need to do something with this before that moratorium goes away.
Otherwise, what'll happen is the
Don't just sit there
moratorium
and
will
say,
be
"Mhm,"
lifted.
Right,
I know.
Mikey?
You,
I voted for
I
it.
know you did.
you could extend the moratorium, correct? Can you
I
extend
would
the
have to look to the
moratorium
city
beyond the year?
attorney's office for that.
Well, I think Frank will be okay once he sees those minutes.
And I guess that's one point that,
We have the minutes from the last meeting. They're completed and available. I can send them. That's not a problem.
Just
We-
not online.
yeah.
That's
They-
the problem.
They are online, they're
They
just
are-
not
they are
in our
now.
packet. They're on the planning commission's packet. So I think one of the things that we could do from this is that when there are items from the planning commission, if the minutes are available, we could put those in your packet so you can have had the opportunity to look at those.
Put it on the January 22nd council meeting.
Do you guys all concur with doing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Sometimes it's just the timing of when the planning commission meets and when the items come forward, but.
Don't their minutes have to be approved before they're put on the website?
So this is in their agenda. They have a planning commission
They'll be
meeting
approved tomorrow
tomorrow.
night, ideally.
So this is part of their agenda packet. The minutes are in their agenda packet to be approved for
So
tomorrow.
I was reading their agenda packet.
Yes.
All right, so we'll bring it back at the January 22nd council meeting. All right, item C, council member vacancy, appointment process, and application. There's just one thing I'd like to say before we do what we need to say on the application. The last paragraph in this says, please confirm that you are a current resident of the city of Way Park and are at least 18 years of age.
Yeah. You need,
Minnesota Constitution says, Article 7, Section 6, eligibility to hold office. Every person who by the provisions of this article is entitled to vote at any election and is 21 years of age is eligible for any office elective by the people in the district wherein, should say he or she, this isn't a very updated constitution, wow. As recited 30 days previous to the election, except as otherwise provided in this constitution or by the constitution and laws of the United States. So that should be a 21-year-old, 30 days residence of Way Park, not 18,
qualified to vote, yeah.
qualified to vote.
Well,
U.S. citizen, resident of the Wait.
there's another dinger. You can vote at 18, but you can't hold office.
Yeah. And interestingly, I'd gotten some of the information from another city, so I assumed that part of it was right, and I shouldn't have assumed that, so appreciate the information.
All right, the other thing we have to do is we have to declare that vacancy. There is a
A resolution.
I'll go ahead and motion number one, move to approve the council member vacancy of Chuck Snyder.
Second.
further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. And then I need a motion too here.
Make a motion to approve the council member vacancy process and application as presented, with the starting date of January 8th through the, was it the 14th?
18th, I believe, at
Through
4
the
o'clock.
18th at 4 o'clock,
With the revision of 21 on the
with the revision of the 21 year
of age.
of age.
When I make the changes, I'm gonna actually send it over to Paul to review, just to make sure we covered everything.
Okay.
Good.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. For anybody that's thinking about running for that, I would like to have that on board personally. I'd like to have that person be up here for the February council meeting, so whoever that is. All right. Council and mayor, review and approve bills.
The only question I had on the bills is they were turned sideways
I
again.
know, I forgot to turn them, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's hard to read those suckers when you're,
At least I figured out how to fix my iPad so
that
the
upside
picture
down
doesn't turn back, so I could read them, but
There you go.
I'll move to pay the bills.
Second.
second.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Mike?
With the amphitheater coming up and expense being one of the major problem, or not problems, but questions with it, several times I've asked about the legacy funds, and I was suggested by the Senate and the House people that we look into legacy funds this year, because it is their year to hand out the bonding for legacy. I feel we better get going on it. We can use it for the pathways and the different park things out there. So I think we better check on that and ask for some of that funding, because it was strongly suggested by several of the senators that we do that, and that money is available, and there's quite a, not an abundance, but there's quite a bit of money in that particular. If we can get $10, $10 is $10, but I think we better look into it so we can get going on it and see how much money we need and can receive from that particular fund that we can.
I'm checking into that, Mike. We actually, myself and Shauna and Bill just discussed that on Friday, and I just started peeking into it, so I'm spending some more time tomorrow checking into the current requirements and whether we'd be eligible and the specifics on that. So we'll
Okay.
have some more information soon.
Keep us
We
up-
got some
just keep us
people.
up to date on
Yeah,
it.
we got
Sure.
some people on our side for it, so.
All right, anything? I don't have anything else. Shauna?
No, I don't have anything for now.
All right, Paul, you got anything? All right, Carla? Chief?
No, sir.
John?
No, sir.
Terry?
I do have something. In the process of notifying our SEH team of Chuck Schneider's passing, I got an email from one of our engineers who worked with Chuck on the water tower project. And she had a great idea to memorialize Chuck. So her idea was this, to create some playing cards with Wade Park Tower and in memorial of Chuck Schneider.
All right.
So we have found a good way to remember Chuck and his dedication to the city of Wade Park, and particularly this project.
There you go.
And
All right.
for those that might not know, but Chuck's knowledge of the paint industry really helped us out
Yes.
with the painting of the water towers. And our tower that we painted this summer was, a lot of his work went into doing that and making sure that the logos match the exact paint colors. And so we really appreciated that. So this was something that I know that he was very proud of to see when it was done. So thank you, Terry, appreciate that.
It's terrific, thanks.
Wonderful. Daughter? Lisa? Perfect, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
I got a question that would pop up on this then. Kind of a conversation was, is how could we as a city memorialize Chuck on our next water tower that's getting done? Is there a small space underneath here that we could put in memory of Chuck?
All right, well, something to think about.
Something to think about.
Yep, all right.
Great idea. We can talk with SCH about that.
Anything else? We are adjourned at 7:15.